What's happening, everybody? For this video, I'm hoping to combine two different ideas into one kind of interesting mix. So stick with me here. In recent videos, I've talked about, not only myself, but plenty of other members of the YouTube comic community have just talked about the way the comic market has been going lately, the secondary market anyway, and just with speculation on the rise at an all-time high. I think we can all agree. And just prices of books, Silver Age, Bronze Age, just skyrocketing. All new, like all sorts of different books are suddenly becoming hot in keys every other damn week, every week basically. There's always some new book popping up and everybody's speculating. I see that in a lot of videos too, where people are just kind of speculating, oh, I'm speculating on this and you know this character's gonna show up. No, you don't know shit. And one of the things I've kind of talked about, and I always try to do this because just the way everybody can kind of hype up things with Instagram and YouTube and like speculation and rumors and just throwing all this type of stuff out there. I've always tried to do little PSAs for comic collectors, like well-versed and long-time comic readers and collectors, as well as newcomers, because we're constantly getting an influx of new people to the hobby as readers, collectors, and speckers, flippers, all that kind of stuff. So I always try to look out for new collectors and new readers, especially because don't want them to come into the hobby and get suckered or just tricked or kind of fall into traps. So that's why I always like to say PSA and just kind of make sure that newer collectors out there are taken care of, because I feel like that's something that is kind of missing in the comic community. So again, with the comic market, and it's gone just absolutely crazy. And it's just so wild to think back to last year, early in the pandemic. I was off and like I hit eBay hard. I was like, all right, you know what? Screw it. And it was like a snowball effect, because I was just looking for one book or just a couple of books here and there. And all of a sudden, like, oh, I was crossing off mad books off my want list, and it was great. And I felt like there were great deals at the time, but now all of a sudden, months later, just everything went nuts. I don't know what it was. And a lot of people always like to say it was stimulus. People were getting their stimulus checks and just an influx of money into back issues. And I feel like with the speculation and all the different shows and all these different streaming apps and new movies and rumors and announcements and trailers dropping, so that just kind of led to all that. And then not everybody, but a lot of people wanting to get into that. So what I'm kind of leading that, or that kind of leads into, like, all right, so kind of the two ideas are the comic market and scaling back. So what does scaling back mean in this context? Like, all right, looking at your comic spending, either new issues, back issues, and just scaling back for any number of reasons. And one also thing besides like PSAs for comic collectors, new and old, is like, I never want you to feel ashamed or feel like you have to like go out of your way and do all this extra stuff just to kind of keep up, as it's say, keeping up with the Joneses. Because you'll see a lot of people on their YouTube channels and their Instagram accounts, maybe Facebook, Reddit, where else do people, Twitter probably, and wherever else, people are just kind of showing off books, keys, and slab books. And like, I just feel like that can sometimes, now there is some accountability, personal accountability with a lot of that, but I just feel like it can kind of influence people the wrong way. So like, just be careful, and like, I don't know, just don't feel pressure to constantly have to try to play up, keep up appearances and just kind of play into it, and just to kind of keep pace with a lot of other collectors, because everybody has different situations. And so like, hey, you know what, what's what we're looking for? Just the kind of extra capital or just surplus money that people have. There's a specific phrase, like, I forgot what it is. It's a simple phrase, and as soon as I finish this damn video, it's gonna pop in my mind. But like, I was just like, hopefully this is like a comfort thing for you. Like, hey, don't worry, like, you're fine. Feel free to just relax. Like, you can feel free to step back, because I've done that plenty of times. Like, you have used eBay a lot over the years, and sometimes I'll look at an auction and be like, you know what? I'll step back, like pause, like, hold on, this is getting way too intense. I will absolutely step the fuck back from an auction. Like, you know what? this is more than I want to spend right now. And the book, like the price might be whatever, and I might even have it. But just for some reason, like, hey, you know what? I'll step back, take a look at this, and or like reevaluate this, and like maybe try for another book another time, whatever. Like that's okay. And as books kind of, again, just kind of go crazy and just in prices and all types of stuff, especially now I'm a big X-Men fan, as you should all know. So I'm looking at a lot of X-Men books and just kind of seeing those prices just go crazy within the last year, especially. And you've kind of seen in this past, well, a couple videos. By the time you will see this, by the time you see this video, I will have uploaded a couple anyway, because I've got it in a few books off eBay, and I did a bunch of unboxings at the same time, or around the same time. So I don't even know, I can't remember what order I will have uploaded some of those in, but here are some of the packaging. Obviously it looks way more than it actually is. Some of this is just packaging I just kind of kept there together. And I also have this, and I'm waiting on another package. So like definitely some X-Men books. Like, you know what, I want to go after these books. And now how scaling back plays into this is I'm looking at my pre-order, which is, or my mycomicshop.com pre-order, which you don't know, I use mycomicshop.com to pre-order, and like I said, 35%. I won't go into that whole spiel, but that's just kind of give you a little insight into my comic collecting. So I use them for pre-orders, and that's usually due at the end of the month, like roughly like the last Wednesday of the month. So I got that coming up. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm starting to hit some of these books. Summer's coming back up. Me and one of my guys are planning a road trip, and I want to do like I won't say where we're going yet, just in case it doesn't happen, but for that road trip, and like plan to hit a bunch of shops, and I want to keep an eye out for, there's a set of books that I want to keep an eye out for. If I come across those, like I want to make sure I'm set to get those, but then I'm also looking at just a lot of other older books, and like, all right, you know what, going up to these, and like this isn't something to say, like you see not a lot, but you will see on YouTube sometimes people will say, oh, newer books, newer comics suck, or Twitter, Instagram, whatever, like, oh, newer comics suck and it's all woke, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. No, like, you sound stupid. This isn't that, because I obviously love a lot of new books, Marvel, DC, indie, and not even just a Marvel and DC versus indie thing, because I think that's a stupid argument as well. I love both. Marvel and DC are putting out great books, and there are tons of indie books out there, so there's something for on both sides of that mainstream versus independent argument, which is going to be the subject of a video that I would plan to drop. I don't know, you'll see that shortly, coming up in the near future anyway. So scaling back and looking at the comic market and the idea of scaling back. Now again, I said scaling back as in either new books or older books. So I'm like, all right, you know what, I can start to trim my newer books that I can get, because I can always get those. I just like doing mycomicshop.com because that huge discount, plus it is a great incentive to try out newer books because I'm paying a fraction of the cost of a new release. I'm like, all right, you know what, I can shed some of that weight, financial weight, and put that towards some of the other books. Because again, like I have in here, I have an X-Men book there's a couple books in here, but one of those is an X-Men book I've been after. So I'm like, all right, you know what, I want to start getting these because these prices are going up. And as far as the comic market, I don't, especially with X-Men, because they're so popular, and then their impending introduction into the MCU, however that's going to look, it just means those books are, chances are they're not going to drop. And this is just the state of the comic market. And lots of people, there are probably plenty of other people out there who study or who kind of keep way more in touch and study the comic market on a regular basis more than I do. And so you can go find some of the info out there. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, like, so some of the stuff is like, this is just what it is now. So the idea of looking at the comic market now, all right, so you can make the stance, or kind of looking at the dilemma of fork in the road. Like, all right, are you gonna just step back and say, you know what, I will wait and hope for these prices to drop, maybe there will be a crash, or just some of the things will just cool off, because that happens a lot of times. Books get hot, and books, teams, whatever, like all the comic IPs, sometimes they get hot and sometimes they cool off, some just stay hot and they just continue to rise. We've seen that with tons of other books out there. A lot of Key's first appearances and some stories, like they just go up and like that's just it. And then that's the one side. The other side is, all right, you can just kind of look at it and say, hey, this is what it is now. This is the game. And I just gotta like factor that into what my expectations are as far as spending and just whatever else that, like, however you look at your like comic buying, especially back issue buying. And that's kind of where I am right now, especially looking at some X-Men books. So I'm looking at like, all right, what? Because it's just, again, it's just so insane right now. And I imagine a lot of people are just falling off, or you have Marvel Unlimited, DC Universe. Is it DC? Is that the name of that? DC's version of it? But you have access to all the back issue, or the whole back issue library, or at least a good majority of it. So if you're just looking to read and you're okay with, especially for like digital readers, like you're fine. But a lot of us who prefer like our physical books and reading that way, like, all right, so now we're looking at this new market, and a lot of people out there are probably making decisions, and it's kind of like, all right, so this is what it is. The game is the game, as they say. One of my new favorite phrases, the game is the game. And so that's what it is right now. So I just wanted to kind of bring this to y'all and just kind of give you a little insight into where I am right now with that. And then I still haven't even fully looked at the next pre-orders, so I don't even know what kind of books are in there. There's always new stuff, like, again, Marvel, DC, and all the different indie publishers. I'll frequent Image, Boom, Vault, Aftershock, AWA. They're steadily growing. I try to make sure I get some of the main indie publishers that I frequent, because those I think it was 5, give or take. Like, I usually have a steady stream of books. Scout as well. I get a couple of books from them. So yeah, like, there's just a lot out there. So it's kind of looking at like, all right, so when I go through and actually do my pre-order, I'm going to be looking at, all right, what books all right, there's a lot of stuff in that you will be able to find later on. So it's like, I'm just giving up that discount now, and I will still be able to get the books later on at some point. But man, like, a lot of times those values aren't going to go too crazy. Some, especially with a lot of Boom books and everything, if you see something that gets this book got optioned and this and that, blah, 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 this, so those prices get specced out. Think of Something Is Killing the Children, and like that one just came. Something Is Killing the Children, Once and Future, and I think Boom already had negotiated a deal with some studio for just some of their IP. So like, a lot of those books are just going to be just kind of flying off, and you won't even have heard anything about it. Like, why the hell is this book so hot? Like it's one thing for a book to be popular, but a lot of time now in modern times is because they're connected to a series or a movie, some Netflix show, or some other studio is looking at this creative team like, oh, you know what, they're a gold mine of properties, and we're going to start mining all of their ideas for future television shows and movies. And a lot of times that's just rumors or just options. It doesn't mean anything's finalized. So it's just something to be mindful of if you kind of base your speccing or just your buying just to kind of be in the mix on those ideas right there. But back to where I was going with my pre-order, and I'm sure a lot of people are watching going, what the hell are you talking about? Why are these two connected? Nobody cares about your pre-orders, Gino. Talk about the key books and the old books. But trust me, follow my madness. So I'm just giving you, again, some insight into my personal viewpoint, just kind of putting that out there just in case. Again, always looking to share some insight and just my own knowledge, just to kind of help out anybody else out there in the comic book community. Again, especially newer readers and new collectors, just kind of alleviate some stress and just provide some insight. So, like, all right, you know what? I can pull back on, and that's it's another thing, like, it's a tough one because I did that on my last pre-order where I was kind of looking at, all right, what can I cut? And I look at some of the titles I read, and Marvel, DC, and again, the litany of indie books that I read, and how do you make those decisions? Like, all right, because I was thinking about one specific title, Children of the Grave was one I kind of debated, because I was like, all right, you know what, this one, like, was like, oh, you know what, I could cut this one. But I was like, damn, you know what? I like this story, I like the concept and the way it's presented, like written and drawn. Like it's a good book, like it's a good story. And that's what matters most. It doesn't have to be, everything doesn't have to reinvent the wheel or be some, just some epic, monumental comic event that shakes up the industry. Like it can just, like I'm cool with the good story, like good storytelling, visually and written. What's the word? I don't know what the another like word for written would be, but just like the writing and the art like combined to like just do some great storytelling. Like, okay, so that's where I kind of struggle, and I imagine I will be struggling again when I do this next pre-order. Like, what can I cut? But some books I'm like, all right, you know, this might not be something that's going to be too hard to track down later on. Maybe I'll find certain issues in the $1 or $2 bin at one shop or another. Who knows? Or I may just pay cover price in the shop. Like, okay. So just kind of putting my focus, not my entire focus, but just more focus into a lot of older books as those prices go up. Because again, specifically for like some of those main, and I talk about my main Marvel mainstays, X-Men / Uncanny X-Men, Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers, Captain America, and Daredevil. Now Daredevil probably on the lower end of that because a lot of those books just aren't, like those keys aren't as elevated as a lot of the other series, because obviously X-Men, Spider-Man, and then Avengers and Captain America got a huge boost. Well, Avengers and Captain America got a huge boost because of the MCU. So those were kind of stand out there. Everybody knows Avengers and Captain America, like they're mad mainstream right now, whereas before the MCU stuff, they really weren't. But X-Men and Spider-Man have always held, I'm gonna say relative strong popularity, probably two of the most popular IPs at Marvel for a while, and having the 90s cartoons probably was a strong, what's the word I'm looking for, was a strong element of that or indicator of that. So, but now all of those are like just shot up, and then again with the X-Men coming into the MCU at some point, in whatever fashion that may be, like those books you've all seen. If you just go searching, like sometimes I'll just go search on eBay just for different titles, just to kind of see like what was going on, or just see how many copies of a book might even be out there to be sold, or how many people or how many copies are being sold at one time, and just kind of see some of the prices. And then looking at X-Men books from last year to now, and just seeing just some of the crazy prices on a lot of stuff. Like, oh man, you know what? This is kind of the game now. So, and do that with all those titles as well. So, obviously, because those are my, if you like follow my hauls over the last year, especially early in the pandemic, like those were a majority of my hauls, like those 5 titles right there. And obviously everything else kind of sprinkled in as it kind of came across, especially just a lot of random books cheap to fill in some holes. Like, oh, you know what, that's cool. Like that's a book I want, or it's just some other cool stories. So, but yeah, again, just kind of wanted to bring this out to you. I just thought it was a fun way to, or interesting way to kind of combine those two ideas of looking at or evaluating and reevaluating the comic market as it is today, and just the rise in speculation and prices skyrocketing, with kind of scaling back for whatever reason. Again, now scaling back, I didn't really go as in depth to some of the reasons. I just kind of wanted to throw it out there and just kind of give a broad definition of it. But you may, like, reasons for scaling back include, as mine is, like putting more focus into other areas of my comic collecting habits. But then you're also just like scaling back just because you're like, all right, you know, I just want to start saving money, put money aside. Or if you're people with families, you have a significant other, you have kids or vehicles and home stuff, or maybe you got a vacation coming up, bills might be like rising, or whatever, health stuff. Like there's just a myriad of reasons why people kind of scale back and just spend less on comic, or just readjust how they spend and what they spend within this hobby or any other hobby. So yeah, just kind of just thought this would be cool. So share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever kind of just looked at your comic spending and your buying, either regarding new issues versus new issues and old issues, or new issues versus older issues, and just kind of like again, just readjusted that, scaled back in one area or another, and just your thoughts on the comic market, if you're into back issues, or even if you're not, like you might be a digital reader and you just like the conversations around back issues, and you just like just because that's just another facet of the comic book industry and just this hobby of comic collecting and comic book reading, and sometimes you just might find it interesting, and that's okay too, because that's cool, because you can still be part of the conversation and just kind of just engage with others. So that's always fun. It's just another part of the hobby to consume. So if that affects you, or if it doesn't, go ahead and share your thoughts on that as well. So yeah, happy reading, happy hunting, happy collecting. This is GENOTHADRAGON. Thanks for watching, and peace out.